Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on language rights at different levels and places. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would be able to understand what are linguistic rights and how they are operating at different levels and at different places. Well, my dear students, languages are not isolated systems that work or operate in isolation. They are actually interconnected with so many other systems. So, for example, they are connected with culture, they are connected with environment, with politics, with language planning, and thus they impact, all these aspects or spheres of human life, and in turn are being affected by all of them. Well, in order to help you understand what kind of linguistic rights are being struggled for in today's world and how it is happening at different places in the world, there is a good example that I'd like to share of language ecology that is from Colombia, which Katerina Tomaszewski, as a special rapporteur on education for the United Nations Higher Education and Human Rights, visited in 2002. According to her, ethno-education, that is a concept that is provided under Act number 115 of the Colombian government of 1994. It aims at, groups of communities that have their own native cultures and that have their own native languages, their own traditions and certain laws. And this act requires that, all this is differentiated in their education, through their own languages. So, in this context, a scheme is introduced. And what is the scheme? It is an educational forum that is proposed by local people in Choco. The poorest region in Colombia, by the way, is this area. So, to draw up on an educational curriculum, efforts are made to involve people to get education in, whether it is individual or it is collective, in the language or the languages, that they aspire to use. Ethno-education, if I look at the term, well, it is described in the Colombian constitution as an education for ethnic groups which must be in accordance with their aspirations. So, at different places in the world, human linguistic rights have been accepted and they are being promoted, and different policies are being made, different projects are being run to provide people with these linguistic rights. However, when we look at the global level, there are certain problems with this, issue that is at hand. Global human rights policies rarely cover economic and social rights, and they hardly ever mention them except for the political rights. So, the placement of human linguistic rights into, the human rights on the global level is the very first issue that is faced. And in fact, when it comes to the languages, though international law accepts and acknowledges the right to use certain languages as human beings want to, but there are still problems with that. And according to Ranert 1999, international law does not deal with languages directly. It does not talk directly about linguistic rights or language rules, as per se. Rather, international law talks about it as markers of identity and dignity of persons belonging to a specific group expressed in various language function domains. So, indirectly, it addresses all that. So, the crux of all this is that although international law recognizes collective rights of human beings to, use languages as per, their choices, however, all the linguistic rights actually are just associated with individuals, and collectively as groups or as states or as nations, these laws are not protected as such internationally. Explicit reference to the collective aspect would give minority language speakers more protection. This is the view of sociolinguists, that these linguistic rights in all these legal documents should protect the collective human linguistic rights as well. Well, my dear students, there are two main linguistic human rights in education that are acknowledged. One, to learn the standard form of an official language that is, in the country of residence. So people should be given the linguistic right that they learn that particular language so that they could have access to education. And secondly, to learn and use their mother tongue. Why? Because that is a source of, preserving their culture and their values.